When you ask people across companies about annual budgeting, you'll hear a lot of complaints. It takes too much time, it doesn't help me run the business, it gets out of date before it's even finished, or there are too many iterations. But people raise these concerns for one of two reasons. Either they misunderstand what budgeting actually is, or the process simply isn't run effectively. So in this video, I'll walk you through the exact 5-phase framework that eliminates all of these common complaints. The same framework I used to lead 11 annual planning processes at Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and Squarespace as a finance leader. By the end, you'll have the blueprint to lead a budgeting process that actually adds value to your organization. Let's start with phase 1, and that's the pre-kickoff. This phase is crucial, as this is where you plan the actual budgeting process itself. Most finance teams know that you need to plan ahead when it comes to how to set up timelines and deliverables, but there's one thing most finance teams skip, and that's a huge mistake. That's reviewing the previous year's budgeting process. What worked, what didn't, and key lessons learned. Specifically, you want to focus on 3 things: speed, depth, and trackability. Speed in the sense of, were there any bottlenecks? Were any inputs submitted late? How long did it take you to consolidate inputs and share the results with the leadership team? Did it ever happen that by the time you were done consolidating, you were already asked to include new assumptions, meaning you were chasing your tail without the opportunity to add value through deeper analysis? And how long did the process take in its entirety? Was the budget approved and locked by mid-November as originally planned, or did it drag on to early January? Depth is about making sure that the assumptions behind the projections are deep enough to get value from using them as a benchmark for variance analysis. You want to be able to learn something when you compare actual results to your budget. But you can only achieve that if assumptions go deeper than our VP of sales estimated demand based on his past experience, and I guess he was wrong. And trackability means that most assumptions that go into the budget are actually measurable. So for example, if one assumption is that you plan to do a Super Bowl ad for the first time to drive brand awareness, then you better have a way to track how those 30 seconds translate to purchases weeks or months later. I can speak from experience here that this is no easy task. Now, notice what I didn't mention: accuracy. I argue accuracy shouldn't be one of the main goals of a budgeting process. And this is often misunderstood. See, the objective of the budget isn't to be as accurate as possible. Nobody has a magic crystal ball to predict the business and competitive environment in 8 to 12 months out. Rather, it's a commitment what the company sets out to achieve and how. You need to be flexible. If there are reasons to spend more than was originally budgeted and you analyze it, the ROI is positive, go for it, support that decision. And if a competitor ends up doing something that nobody expected, you might as well have to deviate completely from your plan. But if you have the right depth in your assumptions, that comparison of actual results to budget will still yield important insights. Lastly, once you're done with reviewing your previous year's budgeting process, you implement process improvements and decide who needs to deliver what and by when. This phase sets up everything that follows, so make sure to invest the time upfront. Before I move to phase 2, if you're finding this video helpful and want to master the complete budget timeline with exact templates and deliverables, then click the first link below to get my free 20-minute video course on annual budgeting. Now, phase 2 of the framework is joint planning. I mentioned before that depth of assumptions is a key goal for budgeting. The question is, how do you get there? I often see finance teams make a huge mistake. They do one of two things, both are equally bad. Finance teams create the budget mostly themselves, or finance just consolidates the inputs they receive from business partners. Both approaches lead to the same result. The annual plan lacks depth, and as a result, it becomes meaningless for decision making once actuals start to deviate from expectations. Instead, finance must collaborate with business teams and meaningfully challenge the assumptions. Here's how to do that. Finance creates a detailed top-down plan, and department heads create their bottom-up by adding up the expected results of their investments and activities. Then finance can use the top-down to challenge the bottom-up with data and tease out what the risks and opportunities are by asking the right questions at the right time. I cover exactly what questions you should ask in my full course leading the budgeting process. Next up is phase 3, consolidation. Finance rolls up all department plans into a consolidated P&L and balance sheet. There are 2 issues you must avoid here. Number 1, losing track of all the versions, and number 2, spending too much time on consolidation. Speed is absolutely critical here. If consolidation takes too long, inputs become outdated. I recommend you use planning systems instead of just Excel for faster processing and automatic versioning. Nowadays, there are software solutions available at a wide range of price points, and they don't need IT support to implement anymore. If you don't yet have a planning software in place, create departmental snapshots that show consolidated expenses and revenues by department, not just for the entire company. This allows you to quickly identify issues and communicate directly with department heads. I'll walk you through how to set this up in Excel in my Leading the Budgeting Process course. Phase 4 is iteration. Here's the harsh truth. The first version rarely meets the expectations of leadership. In fact, in 11 years of managing budgeting processes as a finance leader, it hasn't happened even once that the first round of budget inputs ended up being the final version approved by senior leaders. Most initial bottom-up plans are too conservative and don't reach company targets. Here's a trick that saved me countless of hours when dealing with initial budget inputs that are unrealistic. When you ask for inputs, don't ask for single data points, but request ranges instead. So instead of sales telling you they expect to generate 300 new leads in January, ask them to tell the best case and the worst case scenario. For the initial budget submission, you can choose to calculate revenue using the lower end of the range. And if that doesn't meet investor or leadership expectations, you don't have to go back to the drawing board and ask sales for a new estimate. Instead, you can quickly adjust to using a number closer to the best case scenario. This also makes it easy to quantify the risk involved in your plan to enable leaders to make more informed decisions. Phase 5 is final alignment. This is where finance presents the final consolidated plans to the leadership team for approval. Keep in mind that a good budget is more than just numbers. It must communicate what strategies the teams go after, how these strategies translate to tactics, what success looks like for all of the major tactics, and how we plan to measure it throughout the year. Once approved, the budget becomes the baseline for monthly and quarterly performance reviews. One last tip. You might get requests from department heads to make changes right after the budget has been closed. Don't do it. That can result in endless cycles of redoing models and slides. Instead, point them to the fact that the next forecast update is just around the corner. In the end, the annual budget is about strategic direction and commitments, while monthly or quarterly forecast updates are about accurately predicting the most likely future. And that's a complete 5-step framework for running annual budgeting that actually creates value for your organization. Now, if you're ready to become the FP&A professional who leads world-class budgeting processes, click the first link in the description and enroll in my free video course about how to master the budgeting timeline. In that training, I go much more in depth into one of the most crucial aspects of the planning process, and that's deciding on deliverables and timelines. Again, click that first link below to get it. And if you want to watch my full beginner's guide on financial modeling, then click here.